All right. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Welcome to the November Falls of the James Group meeting. And it's wonderful to see you all here. As is our usual procedure, we are going to very quickly go to our speaker. There's a lot that could be said tonight, but I don't know how much of it is meaningful. And I'm just going to say, every time in this past week that I've gotten together with good folks, like-minded folks, I have felt better. And so I'm grateful that we're here tonight. And my name is Joe Brancombe. I'm the chair of the Falls of the James Group. And again, so glad to see you here tonight. Yes, we're going to leave aside the elephant in the room for now, but I think we have the perfect speaker that we could have for tonight, because the hope of the next few years is going to be in local action. And our speaker tonight works locally and enables other people and other organizations to do their work locally, to get grants, to connect, to make projects happen. And that's what we are all going to have to do for ourselves in the next few years. Our speaker tonight, Laura Thomas, went to school in Madison, Wisconsin, worked as the sustainability director in Largo, Florida, and would like me to speak more about the office than about her herself. And the sustainability office has grown in the number of people. It is a dynamic office of cross-functional specialists who accelerate the advancement of climate justice in our City of Richmond through the implementation of RBA Green 2050. And the Office of Sustainability vision is that all Richmonders, regardless of their identity or the neighborhood, thrive in climate resilient, climate neutral community. In order to achieve the vision, they strive to provide all services in a manner that is inclusive, respectful, transparent, and collaborative. Every time we're about to learn about some changes, some positive changes that are happening with the Office of Sustainability and the City of Richmond. And so without further ado, let's welcome Laura Thomas.
Thank you so much, Joe. We'll get this presentation loaded up here. Again, Laura Thomas, Director of the Office of Sustainability. I am thrilled to be here with you all this evening to share a little bit about the work that we are doing. I may, in fact, touch on the elephant in the room towards the end of the presentation. Thank you. And I am a mover and I'm klutzy, so I might fall over it a little bit too, but that's okay. So I'm happy to be here with you all tonight. I want to talk briefly first about what exactly is sustainability, what exactly is resilience. These terms get tossed around a lot. A lot of folks in this room probably have a lot more clarity than folks that aren't tuned in as much. But I really like to start with these models because I think it's an important framework for how we do the work that we do. So raise your hand if you've ever seen the Venn diagram of sustainability. Right? People, planet, profit, and then like sustainability is in the middle. Anyone have seen that before? Maybe a few people? Okay, throw it away. We don't like that model. The nested model of sustainability is really important because this shows us that what we're doing, the work that we're actually doing in the Office of Sustainability, is understanding how the decisions we make as a local government impact the way that these systems interact. So it's systems thinking, it's change management. I have my button that I give out all the time that says, but we've always done it this way, the big red X. It's all about systems change, the work that we're doing. So if we're gonna buy a vehicle, let's buy an electric. Well, let's wait and say, actually, the first question should be, do we even need to buy the vehicle, right? So like proper resource management. And then on the other side, you see something called the social determinants of health. This is a very popular public health model, used a lot in health sciences. I integrate it into our work because I like to say that we do human-centered work, right? It's not quote-unquote green environmentalism, it's about the people in our community when you're working in local government. And so what the resilience as a social determinants of health model says is that If we put community resilience as our ultimate goal, then in the center, you see this, living and working conditions. These are the city services. The things that we provide as local government have to be reflective of lifestyle factors, have to be reflective of diversity of your community, what the exact needs of those folks are. And so if we're building out that resilience, we're really leaning into this model. So that's enough theory. Let's talk about climate change here locally. All but one of these images are actually from Richmond. So flooding that we're already experiencing, heat waves that we're already experiencing. When folks talk about the impacts of climate change, they tend to think about, oh, these are way off in the future. No, they are happening here today. The one that I just added in for this presentation was Hurricane Helene. There are some initial studies already out that show that Helene had a 10% increase in rainfall, an 11% increase in wind shear because of human-induced climate change. So it's still new studies, they're still going to be modified, numbers might fluctuate a little bit, but generally we know that things like this are already happening, and we have entire towns in the southeast that have been lost to this one storm. And we know that the impacts of something like a Hurricane Helene will happen here too, right? We are technically, according to NOAA, we are a coastal community. We might not think of ourselves as that, but from a funding perspective and a federal government perspective, we are actually a coastal community. And we're going to continue to have these larger and more intense storms come in and travel from the Atlantic and hover over here in Richmond. So it's a matter of when this kind of thing is going to happen again. For our work here in the City of Richmond, I am super happy to say that we are actually looked at least in the Southeast, if not nationally, as one of the leaders in climate equity work. That is because of what has been put into RBA Green 2050, the years of planning and the years of data analysis, where we're really looking at these factors that you see behind me and identifying who in our community is A, most impacted by, and B, has the least amount of resources to recover from the impacts of climate change. And that is the front line of climate change. And so here in Richmond, racial equity is a priority for us. So I like to say that our office does work at the nexus of climate change and racial equity. These are some of just a few of the, I think it's a total of 51 different factors that we use to analyze and identify where front lines of climate change are. So the lighter colors, we don't really do much work there. Maybe tangentially, some stuff impacts them. Maybe if we're doing citywide policy, it would be everywhere, but the majority of the work that we do, the folks that we fund, the work that we fund, is gonna be in these darker areas. And overall, I mentioned it a moment ago, RBA Green 2050, our Climate Equity Action Plan. It sets out our vision and our goals for the City of Richmond, and it covers the 5 pathways that my team works on. So buildings and energy, community, environment, transportation and mobility, and waste reduction and recovery. So that's a lot of stuff. On our small and mighty team, we are somewhere between 8 and 11 team members. So a very small office, but doing a whole lot of work. This plan was adopted by City Council in February of 2023. And since that time, we have completed 18% of this, which is a lot because there are 136 action items in this plan. These action items were determined by the community through extensive public engagement, really trying to figure out how we get into the communities that we don't often hear from, right? So those frontline communities. So we did things like partner with community-based organizations that have relationships with, say, Black and Brown community members or folks that may not speak English, because we know that as local government, we're not the trusted entity in those situations, so we want to build relationships with folks that are. And that's how we came about these 5 topics, all 136 action items, and the vision and goals that we have. So I'm gonna go through and I'm just gonna share some projects that we're currently working on to give you a sense of what the Office of Sustainability does in a more practical way. And then it's really for me just an opportunity to be here with you all and answer questions. I'm happy to talk specifics, if there's policy changes or programs that you're interested in learning about more, and give y'all an opportunity to also help and support some of the work that we're doing. So the first project that I'll share is related to the Inflation Reduction Act. Has anyone here heard of the Inflation Reduction Act? Yes, okay, fantastic. So I don't have to quite do my whole spiel here. Between the IRA and the BIL and some other funding, there's over $300 trillion with a T in climate justice funding. Once in a lifetime, once in a generation. May never see this again. So when I came to this role, which was in October of 2022, that was right before a lot of this funding was starting to come out. And my role was brand new to the city, so I didn't adopt a whole work log, right? I got to design whatever I wanted to focus on, and this was my #1 priority at the time. And with this, we actually developed a first-in-the-nation model of how to convene with community-based organizations to ideate projects, grant match make, and go after dollars, with the intent of driving dollars, again, into those Black and brown communities and the community-based organizations that serve them, rather than necessarily pushing dollars into the city itself. We really wanted to focus on how to help those organizations grow and learn themselves so that they can be grant machines as well and going after all of this. So in the first year, my team put in a little over $35 million in applications. A lot of that's still pending, so we don't know. We have received roughly close to 10 million in 1 year. And we're currently overseeing just our office alone, 5 federal grants. We have 20 million in flux right now, and I anticipate next year that my office will apply for another 20 million in federal grants. And other grants too, right? That's not just federal, there are state, there are local, there are philanthropic grants, and I think elephant in the room, philanthropy is gonna play a really big role moving forward in what we do. Another hat that I wear outside of my role here is I'm the president of the board for Southeast Sustainability Directors Network. And so I'm having to get a purview into a lot of philanthropy, where they're trying to fund and which direction they're trying to go, navigating this new federal landscape that we have. And I'll just say, Richmond is poised in a very good position in the eyes of those folks. The next one, grants, but not for us, but from us. So the city administration and Mayor Stoney announced that moving forward, starting this fiscal year, we will have $250,000 every year to give to community-based organizations, again, doing the same work directly from our office. The project was initially ARPA funded, so American Rescue Plan Act funded. We had a little bit more money because of that. The initial year, we gave out $865,000 to 15 organizations, and we're about to announce the approximately six that are going to be receiving the dollars in this year. So one great example project that I'll share from that, Second Baptist Church in the 9th District received a grant last year from us, and they did a program focused on fresh, healthy foods and improving the health of their community. So what they did was they have a walking track behind their church, and they would give, through the grant, they would give folks $5 for every lap that they did. And they would spend those dollars on the farmer's market that was next door. So this is on Saturdays. You'd walk your track, they'd see whole families, right? You've got 2 adults and 2 kids, that's 4, right? And so then you immediately go and get fresh, healthy foods, SNAP and WIC involved as well. So just a really great example of how the dollars from our office are going into our community and directly improving the lives of people who are deserving of it. Our energy program, oh my gosh, I cannot say enough about the energy program that we run. So since I started with the city, it was me and one other person, and now our office is that 8 to 11. One of the programs that we established is the city's energy program. So we have an energy manager, energy coordinator, and several folks that help out. The most exciting part, we actually changed the name. It's not the Joint Energy Committee, it's the Joint Energy Team, so it's JET. And of course, little buttons and pass those out to everybody. But JET helps oversee the $25 million that we spend each year in energy bills as an organization. They're supporting many different projects, from our transition to an all-electric fleet, which we did win an award this year. We were approximately the 30th most green fleet in the country this year. So that was a new accomplishment for us. Yeah, we're definitely making an impact. We did a really fun event where I got the police chief and the fire chief and the mayor all together in the parking lot with an all-electric F-150. I was like, go to town. And they loved it. So now our police chief and our fire chief drive all electric vehicles. So fun stuff like that. Working on energy efficiency upgrades to our buildings. Our capital improvement program, which is what funds our big infrastructure projects, has a horrible backlog of maintenance that needs to be done on our buildings. And so this team is helping us really cut through that and figure out what's the most aggressive and impactful way to ensure that we're getting the energy efficiency goals so that we can partner those along with renewables. Working on renewable energy installations. So right now we are wrapping up design on the city's, it's 2024 y'all, the city's first ever solar installation on TV Smith in the south side. So that'll be live in early next year. We're also working on, I can't recall if I do have a slide, so I'll save it. We're working on another really cool renewable energy project that I'll talk about in a second. But our local government greenhouse gas inventory is down 50%. That's huge, half, right? So we're really getting aggressive on our goals here, and community-wide it's down 23%. Now, those numbers aren't where we need to be. We have a lot more work to do, but I can tell you from my experience, not a lot of cities can claim those numbers, right? And so that's been probably 2 to 5 years making of really aggressive work on those. Another exciting one, this is sustainable design standards. So we are creating performance standards for all new city construction. And I'll caveat that, not private construction. We don't have the legal authority to regulate that here in the city or in the state, but we can control how we build. And so these standards cover these different categories that you see here, and literally as we speak, they are being adopted by City Council. And this is big, y'all. This is, these are really progressive. These have goals about getting to net zero, installing renewables, so all new projects will be adhering to these. Capturing the first 1.25 inch stormwater on site, looking at only native plants for landscaping, no more turf grass, period. Unless it's a public open space, we're just not doing that anymore, right? So really, really excited about the implementation of these. We're not gonna get everything right on day one. We will make mistakes, but it's really exciting to see all these projects moving forward. There's certain thresholds for vertical construction and horizontal construction where they will have to be actually certified by either LEED or Envision, and then everything else just kind of has to use them as a checklist. Another big part of the design standards is the environmental justice aspect of this. So when we think about citing different facilities or citing different projects, we're really talking about land justice, right? The utilization of the community's land. So anytime there is a citing element of a project, the community has to be involved from day one. Like, is this the right location for this building? Is this the right location for this new streetscape? Is this where you want to build your parklet, right? So having that on the get-go is really important, rather than what you experience a lot of times in local government is folks in government make lots of decisions, have lots of high-level conversations, and then you see a public notice about a building going up and you're like, what? So we're not gonna be doing that anymore. So I'm really excited about that, and these are some of the most progressive performance standards for buildings in the country. So I'm very excited about that, yeah. Another one is Cool the City is the new name for this. So this is part of the Inflation Reduction Act rollout. So the first grant that we received was $6 million for Black and Brown-led urban gradings. There are 4 Black-led community-based organizations that are receiving the vast majority of this $6 million, with the exception of the Urban Forest Master Plan that is going to be looking at these items over the next 5 years. So that'll be launched in spring. Officially, we're already underway, but you'll see billboards and cool looking shirts, and we have a cool new logo and all sorts of stuff for Cool the City starting early next year. And if you think back to the slide on the front lines of climate change, this funding, the $6 million, is directed specifically at Justice 40 census tracts, which is essentially those frontline areas that you saw. So most of the project is going to avoid the lighter colors of that map, if you remember. Here's that solar one. So not only are we leapfrogging to our clean energy future with our first ever solar installation, we're actually getting our first ever solar farm. So over on the east end, there's an old landfill, brownfield, that we are working with a developer to transition to a solar farm and pollinator meadow. To the extent where we're actually going to bring bees in and an apiary, and we'll have honey and sell it at farmers markets, all sorts of cool stuff. But this is really great because this landfill was situated within a largely Black community, and you can see is now it used to be a literal hill of trash. It's now kind of capped over, or is capped over. And so what we are excited about is that we can take the revenue generated from this, and it's not like the city is gonna make a lot of money off of this. We're gonna take a little bit of that money and reinvest into other clean energy projects. But the vast majority is going to go to the folks at the East End surrounding the project site. So either they're going to receive discounts on their utility bills if that system is allowed. There's Dominion regulated stuff we'd have to get approved. And if not, then those folks get to decide what community benefits they want. Do they want art? Do they want composting? Do they want electric vehicle charging stations? It's their choice, it's their community, right? So really cool environmental justice aspect of this as well. Generally just some other things that we have coming up. We're going to be, in the next maybe 3 months, hosting some environmental justice tours that the team has been building. So literally walking folks through various parts of the City of Richmond to talk about environmental justice. A circular economy hub, that's a really exciting one. If y'all want to Google the Innovation Hub in Charlotte, North Carolina, we are replicating that. So the city manager, or assistant city manager in Charlotte who developed that is now ours, one of our assistant city managers, and so she's gonna work with us to do the same thing, where we will have a physical location, and that will be an incubator for businesses focused on waste reduction and circularity here in the region. So topics like precious metals recycling, affordable housing manufacturing, and things of that nature. So we're on the very beginning of that, and that takes a long time to get set up, but that's a super exciting one. I've got a picture here of the diamond. Surprisingly, my office is leading a lot of the design of the Diamond District. So I was in a meeting this afternoon to approve the preliminary lead assessment, and we're doing a really great job of making sure that Diamond District adheres to essentially the sustainable design standards. So Diamond District, I'm working on City Center, Chaco, all of the large redevelopment, our team is now involved in heavily. We're also working on an EV charging station policy for citywide, so we're just starting that one. But if you think about place like the Fan, and I don't know if anybody has seen this, but I have. You're walking down the sidewalk in the Fan, and then there's a charging port coming out of somebody's window, and so we've got to figure out how to address that. A lot of cities have done it and have done it well. So we're going to be looking at best practices. Single-use plastic reduction, continuing the fleet transition, working on residential energy burden assistance. Urban agriculture is one I'll mention a little bit more. Really interesting, in the 2020 federal farm bill, the city of Richmond was listed as one of 17 cities to be established as an urban agriculture hub. So bringing in, really for us, it's state resources through Virginia Tech, which is the land grant agency, if you're familiar with those terms, but essentially helping to establish a physical location where all these disparate folks that work on urban agriculture can come together. And it's our goal, myself with the Virginia Cooperative Extension Office, who is the one implementing this, that we become the urban agriculture hub on the east coast of the country. So it'll take a few years to get us there, but there are a lot of really cool projects going on related to that. The elephant in the room. Not a great couple of weeks, y'all. Everybody, I'm sure, is dealing with this in our own ways, right? Some of us maybe expected this, some of us maybe didn't, and everywhere in between. And while I think there are going to be some bad things that happen, ultimately, it's about what we can do collectively here in the city of Richmond that is going to maintain the hope that we need to get us through this, right? We have new city administration coming in. We have our office continuing to grow, continuing to receive more funding. I was telling some folks at dinner earlier, I'm like, scorched earth for justice, let's go. We've got a lot to do. We had 136 action items in our Being Green 2050. We probably have 110 left to go, and I'm gonna need y'all's help to get us there and to get us there on time. Because we also know that with climate change, there's a sense of urgency and a sense of we've got to do it now. And so my ask of you all, the first step, we have something called the Sustainability and Resilience Commission. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of that here in the city. Okay, I think our friends will share a link to the next meeting. It's on Monday. We do it virtually and in person. I'd love for y'all to join us. If you're able to join in person, it's at the Main Street Library on the 18th at 4:30. If you can join online after work at 5, that's great too. Our office generally shares updates like this, but we also share our asks. So it's every 2 months that we have this meeting, and I email all of my team members and I say, give me your list. What do you need help with? What do you need the community to take up arms for and help get ushered through? So I'm collecting that right now, and I'm gonna share that out with the SRC, Sustainability and Resilience Commission, on Monday. So there's gonna be a list of like 10 things that we need help on in the next 2 months to help move this work along, and I just ask that you join us in that. And that is, yes. 4:30. 4:30, yes, 4:30 to 6. And we do provide the information if you're not able to join us. Just reach out, we'll again share the information, and the chair, you can be added to the email list. So you can just look at, hey, I can't be there, but I can get the minutes from the meeting, and I can read what action items you're asking for this month, and I can say, oh, I'm actually really good at understanding energy burden, or oh, I'm just like a people person, so I want to go out and do a thing. I have a lot of time, or I don't have any time, and there's going to be some sort of mix for you all in there.
Online is like 4 to 5:30.
4:30 to 6.
That's not what it said online.
I would believe online and not me. My team knows better than I do. So it's 4 to 5:30 at the I know it's at Main Street Library.
Main library on Front Street.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, I appreciate this. Yeah, I need help with those details. So yeah, that's like the primary thing that I think folks in the room can do, is to join us for that. And I think just continuing to be in community like this, I think you said it, Joe, was like, it feels good to be around the folks, right, that we know are emboldened to do the same things as us and want the same things as us, and like, feel like you're kind of in a little bit of a safe space, and to lean into that as best as we can, because we have a lot of work to do in the city of Richmond. Yeah.
Where would be the best place to plug in? I have a nonprofit and I'm BPI certified. I have a lot of skills in how to identify affordable ways to make buildings much more energy efficient. And as an example, I have a 5-bedroom house. It costs about $140 to heat and cool in the worst of January and August. And the house is same design, catty corner across the street. They keep losing renters because it's $600 a month. So it's the same design, just judicious application of very affordable things. Literally a 6-pack of caulk and expanding foam can almost double the energy efficiency for much less than the price of one window, much less a whole house. So since I have this nonprofit, where would be the best place to plug in, finding a way to perhaps add a field in the housing for air exchange, where when you're shopping around to either rent or buy a building, you can say, well, how efficient is this energy building shell? I would pay less or more money for it because I can see that it will cost me more or less for our utilities.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, do I have a job for you? So on that list of things that I need, one of them is to support one of our federal grants. So we've received several Department of Energy grants. One of them is it's a $500,000 planning grant. We're just going to apply to the $1 million second stage, but it's to design what we're calling an energy savings action hub. So you all may have experienced this yourselves, but there's different energy savings programs out there, right? States have stuff, Dominion has stuff, we have stuff. How do I navigate it all? What do I do? So what we're doing is we're designing a tool, like an app or a website, where you can enter your address and it automatically, and other information, streamlines all of the data and says, here's exactly what you need at your address based on your income and who you are. And kind of taking all the guesswork and redundancy out of things. We're also stacking that with some fiscal support and some capital stack so that we can fund and subsidize this program. There's a lot to it. Anyways, we're looking for at least one community member or nonprofit member to serve as somebody on that project team to help vet and make sure that we're getting it right and that we have all of the resources there.
So should I just talk to you after this meeting?
Or join us for SRC, where we're gonna list out and talk about that more. Yeah.
Do you have a little handout that says when, where, because I know you just said it.
Yeah.
I didn't write it down.
I don't, but I can pull it up. I'm sure we can share it on there. Yeah, easy enough.
Great, thanks.
You mentioned something about EV charging. I am curious to hear how OOS is thinking about EV charging, and I'll add context there that I am worried EV charging is going to be used as I'll call it scapegoat to re-implement parking minimums across cities in the US.
Well, it's not gonna happen here. So the question was about EV charging stations and how they might be, what was the term?
Scapegoat? Not sure if that's great.
They might be utilized in
Sure.
some way to reinforce parking minimums. If you don't know, the city got rid of parking minimums last year, which is wonderful. We love that. My fear with EVs and EV charging stations is that we're focused so much on single occupancy vehicles that we lose sight of the fact that we're really trying to get over to multi-rider share and micro-mobility, right? So EVs are like this short term, I gotta get a policy in place to figure out how we're gonna do it here based on what we're able to do as a municipality. So some smart things like, it might not look the same in every part of the city, right? How do we also incentivize private developers into making sure that we're doing that part there? Because most charging is done overnight at home, right? So it's really gonna be at these like multifamily residences or single occupancy or single family homes. So that's gonna be the most important place to make sure that they're at, but it's just gonna be about smart policy design and making sure that, again, that's the stepping stone, and let's move away from the vehicles altogether. So this one
There's
first.
lots I could ask about, but let's do this one. Is it still true, the city's policy, that you can't do recycling at the multifamily resident, like apartment buildings, which seems weird, and can we change that?
Yeah, so the question is there still a city policy that you can't do multifamily recycling? It's not a policy, it's more about the functionality of things, and it's not quite, it's a little broken here. I was a little surprised. Coming from Florida, we had some real good systems for recycling there. Even after folks are familiar with like the 2019 recycling crash that happened, it was still really strong in Florida. And so coming back here, just seeing how it operates very differently. And so one thing through our Public Utilities Commission that I'm actually hoping that is new, and if you're interested in serving on a board or helping out another, not just SRC, but another committee, that's one that I would strongly recommend. But we're gonna have a solid waste subcommittee. And that is the vehicle that I'm attaching all of our solid waste hopes and dreams to. So essentially, long-term, what would be lovely is if we had a grid system where you bid out different quadrants, if you will, to different vendors. So it's like, oh, you're doing all the waste here, you're doing all the recycling here, and in this one it's a different company. Because right now you could have one street, and you could have 8 different vendors going down that street every day to collect solid waste, or maybe not trash, but at least recycling. So there's a lot of things that we need to do to make this whole system better. We need to get to composting. Sure, composting could be picked up just like trash and recycling, but also if you just compost at home, that's even better from a greenhouse gas reduction standpoint. But more specifically to multifamily, there's no infrastructure in most of these to collect it, right? So the multifamily owner, operator of the facility would have to pay to expand their enclosure, then they'd have to pay for the service, then they'd have to figure out how residents get it there, right? So there's a lot of these complicated things from an infrastructure standpoint that they're not incentivized to look at whatsoever. So again, larger problems, I see them and I know we need to address them, and Public Utilities Commission, I look at the chair of the Public Utilities Commission as I say this, and that subcommittee, we can have a conversation.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah. Does that kind of answer it? It's real complicated.
Yeah, it's really, I collect cans, I have for 30
Ah.
years, I don't sell them, and just do recycling, I can talk about the energetics of aluminum manufacturing.
Yes.
All day.
Have you ever been to a MRF, Materials Recovery Facility?
Yes. What,
Fascinating tours, yeah.
I organized a tour
Oh, great,
for VCU in the spring, yeah.
great.
Please put fast chargers in the diamond.
Fast charger, yeah, I told them today I need to site their transformers differently so we can have level 3 charging stations. I'm working on it. We got another question over here, yes?
A gentle rebuke. I want to say I'm delighted that you're here, and I support everything that you're doing, and I'm very proud of it. The rebuke is that if I read my utility insert correctly, it said that I should be sure and rake my leaves so they could be picked up, because if they're left on the ground, they would leach pollutants into the river. I mean, I would ask that the city do the reverse, that it stop collecting leaves and encourage every landowner who is fortunate enough to have trees to rake the leaves onto their property and then either windrow them or mow them down. We need to encourage the absorption of land, not fill up landfills.
Yeah. It's funny. Coming back to, it was my hometown, I was in Florida for a long time, came back here. What I didn't expect was there to be so much leaf controversy in the state of Richmond. I'll put it this way, I don't disagree with you, sir.
Well, leave that be. I have one other follow-up.
Yes.
I was surprised on your program today to say that one of the less important areas of the city were in the south side, where I live, southwest, which I believe to be the head of the watersheds. Normally, you control the runoff from the highest places, and we have tremendous runoff, and the city has actually invested in expanding the drains, digging bigger drains in order to take the water from the very highest places, rather than building retention basins and trying to store those. Can you address that issue? Shouldn't that be a priority?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that important topic up. So again, the darker areas are the most vulnerable, where we spend most time. There are no less important places in the city of Richmond to us, but there are some that are more important. And so when we think